Wally Hall, columnist, Arkansas Democrat-Gazzette, joins us on Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports as we are the week before the opening weekend of college football with just a handful of games, but much more to come down the road. In fact, Arkansas and Cincinnati will be their opener. Wally, thanks for your time. We appreciate it with Craig Smoak, Paul Catalina, and David Smoak. So that was a nice run they made last year. Do you feel like that they back it up and sustain it and just keep moving forward?
Well, I think we find out the very first game.
Yeah. Wally, this was a team, though, that was kind of stacked at certain positions. They lost Traylon Burks. I mean, do you think that they have the depth to kind of recover from that?
Well, they don't. There aren't many Traylon Burks around. I mean, he was a very special receiver, great size and speed and hands, and he made negative things into positives last year. But they've had some guys that have taken it as a challenge and even said they heard that they took it personal and they heard the receiving core could be the weakness and that they've really worked on it. And I know that it started out with KJ Jefferson working with one receiver every evening, and it grew to be 5. And they would just beat on their own and run routes, throw the football. And, you know, that's a big step in the right way when you build that kind of camaraderie.
Wally, what would you say has kind of been the prevailing storyline this offseason for Arkansas?
I think what they did was they put Arkansas back on the map. They had just been such a dismal program under Chad Morris and, you know, didn't win a conference game for 2 years. People had given up, and they'd given up their season tickets and quit donating. And I think last year just really brought the state back. And, you know, when Sam Pitman spoke at the Little Rock Touchdown Club last week, capacity was 600, and there were 625 people there. So, you know, it's just he's done a great job of reuniting the state, and he just seems to fit very well, probably the best in a long time. So, but, you know, going into this year, there's question marks. Anytime you play in the SEC, especially in the West, you can't afford it to have an off day. Every team is a challenge, and then they added, you know, for non-conference this year, they went with Cincinnati. Brigham Young's got 20 starters back. They're bringing Missouri State in, who's coached by Bobby Petrino, who used to be the coach at Arkansas. And they're bringing in Liberty, that's coached by Hugh Freeze, who coached Ole Miss to 2 wins over Alabama. So, I mean, they got a really tough schedule. The expectations are high, and it probably should be with an offensive line back that's got experience and running backs are deep there. And KJ Jefferson, in my opinion, is just not getting enough credit nationally. He got better in 9 out of 12 or 10 out of 13 games last year. He just improved. And I think he's a really special player.
How much does not only the success of 9-4, but almost they had the Texas win where they dominated Texas right off the top and just blew them out of the water. They beat A&M 2 weeks later. To have wins against those type of teams, I know A&M's been a part of the SEC a long time, but to have Texas as a win as well, not that that's any more special than beating somebody else, but just the historical perspective. Did that also add a little juice to it?
Yeah, oh, yeah, absolutely. You know, they got fined $250,000 for storming the field after beating Texas by the SEC. But, I mean, there were at least 30,000 people down the field celebrating, and a lot of them were kids who knew nothing about the Old Southwest Conference when there was a rivalry. But everybody got into it, and then to turn around and beat A&M for the first time in 6 years or 5 years, whatever it was, that was just huge for the program. I thought the win over A&M gave them the confidence that they needed to go forward.
We're talking to Wally Hall, Arkansas Democrat-Gazzette, Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports.
Where has Sam Pitman hit well that everybody before him had missed?
He grew up 70 miles from the Arkansas border. And he said, when I was a kid, I was an OU fan. As I got older, I went to their camps, and I became a big Arkansas fan. He just seems to understand and get the mentality of Arkansas and how important it is that, Arkansas's got a lot of stuff to brag about, but in the down days of Arkansas, it was the Razorbacks people bragged on, and he gets that, and he talks to people sincerely and honestly. He was a career offensive line coach who got a chance and has made the most of it, and he just seems to really appreciate it. Now he got a huge contract in the off season. He went from making like $2.75 million to making $6 million. So, but that's what the market bears today. I'm sure you guys saw where Nick Saban got more than $11 million a year. I mean, good grief! I think it's $225,000 a week he makes. I just want to be him for 1 month.
Yeah, that'd be great, right?
I would take that.
You know what month I'd pick? June.
Yeah.
He has less to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah. That's a great idea. I didn't even think about that.
Wally, the transfer portal has been a gift and a curse for, I think, every program out there at this point. Everybody's suffered losses and had big additions, and Arkansas is no different. But a couple of the big additions, I know Drew Sanders is certainly getting a lot of preseason pub, the linebacker. Obviously, Jade Hazelwood coming over from Oklahoma, the wide receiver. What's kind of been some of the returns on these newcomers via the portal and how much of an impact they're expected or contribution they're expected to make this upcoming season?
I think a lot, and we've heard a lot about the linebacking, and there may not be any drop off. It might even be improved there. What hurt Arkansas was they lost 2 starting defensive backs to LSU. Mm-hmm. They were both from the area back down in Louisiana, and so those were hard losses because they were starters, and so I would say that about broke even in the portal this year. I don't think they came out ahead like Ole Miss did. I think it was a break even for them.
You mentioned KJ Jefferson, and he had 2,700 yards passing, 21 touchdowns, ran for over 600 yards, and I think 5 or 6 touchdown runs. Is his running ability sometimes underrated?
Yeah, he's deceptive. He's got deceptive speed because he's so big. I mean, he looks like a tight end.
Yeah.
He's 243 pounds, but he's elusive. And a lot of the yards he got on his own, he broke tackles that, he could have been sacked. He broke sacks and made plus yardage. And that was huge for Arkansas. And when you had Burks out there, that was taken. You couldn't single cover him. So the defense lost that safety that could have been spine on Jefferson. And Jefferson took advantage of it. He's a lot more physical than I thought he was. He seemed kind of shy and just real laid back. And now he's become a leader. They've talked about that this whole fall, about how he wasn't always a leader last year, but he is this year, and everybody's looking up to him. And so he's the key. He's the key. I mean, I don't know what happens if he gets hurt.
Yeah, and 9-4, Cincinnati top 25 coming off the college football semifinals. Although they have lost a lot, they still have a lot. That's what Luke Fickell's doing. That game kind of, you don't want to say there's ever a must win, but that game kind of sets the tone, does it not? Otherwise, you start to. Then you have A&M and Alabama back-to-back, and you still have that non-conference game with Brigham Young. It's not a must-win, but how critical is that?
Well, I think it is critical. You're going to establish who you are the very first weekend. You don't get to go play a Missouri State who will probably give them a good half, but will eventually get beat. But you don't get to open with a team like that and iron out the wrinkles and find out some of the unanswered questions get answered. You start out with a team that got beat by Alabama in the playoffs, and they did lose a great quarterback. I mean, a great one. So that gives you a little bit of hope. But I think all total, they have like 12 starters back, a team that was 13-1. One loss, and that was to Alabama.
Wally, thank you very much for jumping on with us. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Hey, thank you, guys. Have a great season.
You too. Wally Hall, Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, 9-4, had the